Welcome to the Construction Doctor, the show where we bring you expert insight on engineering, construction, safety, and smart property investments. I'm your host, Samir Haddi, and today's episode is all about one of the most important decisions in real estate, buying property. Whether it's home or commercial space, making the wrong choice can lead to financial losses, legal issues, or costly repairs. That's why today we're discussing how to evaluate your property before buying and staying in compliance with zoning laws, building codes, and engineering standards. And today's episode is Buying Smart. We're with our co-host, Dr. Najib.
Thank you for having me for the first episode.
Dr. Najib is also our matter expert. So, Dr. Najib, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you about your lengthy education and experience.
Where do we start?
Start at the very end of your education and your experience.
So I have a Bachelor of degree in civil engineering.
Okay.
I have 2 master's degrees, one in civil engineering, one in arts and science. I have a PhD in civil engineering also. My education really had an impact on my work. So I'm a little bit different than the regular civil engineer. I'm not only hands-on on site, but I'm also both as far as a faculty member at a university. And so I do both. I do the educational section and I do the construction section on site.
Okay. Excellent. And how long have you been in the construction field, like as a contractor?
I would say over 30 years.
Over 30 years. That's amazing. And where do you do most of your commercial and your residential contracting?
It's all over the metro of Detroit, but we're focusing lately on Detroit, city of Detroit.
Let me ask you a question. Since we're talking about think before you buy, where would you rate a property inspection and compliance? How critical is that for new buyers?
I would rate that 10. That is very critical.
Okay.
Because you don't want to be stuck buying a property, for example, and spending all that money before you're investigating to make sure that that project is going to get done at that certain property.
Okay. I mean, so you're really trying to uncover the truths about a property. Even if it's a good deal, you should be, as a buyer, you should, buy with caution.
Of course, because at the end of the day, you have a seller that's trying to get rid of a property, correct?
Right.
So he's not going to do your due diligence and tell you, you can't do this, you can't do this, that. They want to, whether it's a real estate agent or whether a regular seller, an owner, homeowner, or whether it's a commercial building, they both are interested in actually selling the property. But it is your duty to do the due diligence to make sure that is the perfect or the best fit for your property or for your project to be constructed on that property. Or you could be purchasing a regular existing building. You also have to make sure that that building is going to be zoned or it's in the right position to satisfy your needs and your projects.
But I want you, as a professional contractor, as an educator, but as more important, as somebody that's a licensed realtor, okay? Why is it such a big investment, when you're talking about the purchase of residential or commercial property? Why is it why do people call it this major investment or life investment?
As far as residential, if it's your first time home buyer and that's going to be your main residence, you want to make sure that your investment is the right investment, because if you don't do your homework and get the correct property that satisfies your leisure, then it's an issue. Now, on the other hand, the commercial, it's of course more spending because it costs more than buying a residential property. And
Why is that? Why is there more spending on the commercial end? Is it because commercial is more development?
commercial is more development, bigger place. It costs more to develop or to build a commercial building rather than building a normal regular home. It's the components, the materials. It's a little bit different.
So, okay. Give me some of the many buyers' biggest mistakes. What are their biggest mistakes? Whether they're first-time home buyers or they've bought before and they make the same mistakes over again. What have you seen some of the common mistakes of new buyers in the residential or commercial market?
The common mistake that I see, and I actually have one that happened 3 weeks ago. We have a new client. She bought a commercial building that sits between residential area.
Okay.
And she was told by somebody, I don't know if it was the real estate guy or somebody from the city, that that is a commercial building. So evidently she had purchased the property and then came to me and saying, well, I need to develop this property. She wanted to open a banquet hall. Looking at the property, it was zoned residential. It's not even zoned commercial. So right there, it's a big issue. And having the city to do a variance or to change the zoning for such banquet hall between residents, it's really tough because you need the parking, you need all this other amenities, and it is really difficult to convert it to become commercial.
Knowing what to look for, like such as aspects as things that are going to save you money and things that might, give you some legal issues, right? Because if you're in that market to purchase a commercial property that will require zoning changes, you would have to go into some type of legal proceeding, right? So there's the hearings that you might attend as an engineer or as a contractor, right, on behalf of that person. If you're buying the right property, you can save your money on those legal issues, right?
That is correct. So if you come to an architect or an engineering firm, and rather than going for a regular drawing, just regular design to get in for the permitting, rather than costing $10,000, now it's costing you $15,000 because now there's a hefty application fees for these such hearings that you have to go and go in front of a board, try to explain your situation and try to get a variance or get something changed to what you desire. Plus, you might have to hire a lawyer or an engineer could actually go there, and that obviously costs money. So now you're spending more money than you should.
Right. So I'm gonna quickly go over the step-by-step property and land evaluation, right? So before buying a property, question one would be what?
Before buying a property,
What's the purpose of the property?
what's the purpose of the property? What's the zoning of the property?
Okay.
Is it zoned commercial? Is it zoned residential? And here's another problem. People think that if somebody tells them this is zoned residential or commercial, they're saying, oh, okay, it's fine. But actually, there are different types of residential zonings, and there are different types of commercial zonings.
I didn't know that. There's
Yeah.
different type of residential.
Of
Okay.
course. So in some cities like the city of Detroit, you might find a building, it's zoned commercial, but that type of C1, C2, whatever, you can't have a appliance store, for say, used appliance store. It could be zoned for retail store, but there are also other things that you have to take a look at. And only experts would know this. You really have to almost consult with an engineer or consult with an architect that have some experience to be able to go to the ordinances and say, yes, you can open a daycare. Yes, you can do a barber shop. Not because you bought you're planning on buying a commercial building, that means in a zone commercial, that means you can do a barber shop.
Right.
That's not the case. And the same thing with the residential. There are residential areas where zoned R1, R2, R4, and certain areas restrict you. Like we have another example. A person came in, they own a 2-acre property and they want to develop that property, and they think they can get 4 houses in that property, half an acre each house, right? But it ended up being zoned, I think, R4. The ordinance says that you can only split it to a minimum 1 acre. That means you can only build 1 house per an acre.
Okay.
See? So there is a difference right there.
Right.
And now also there is a restriction. You can't build 1,000 square foot home on that building. There's a minimum requirement.
Right.
You gotta be at least 2,500, or it could be 3,000 square foot minimum.
Now, let me ask you this: isn't most people that are looking to build have some type of green space requirement, right?
Of course.
You can't just use all 90% of the land. You have to allow for some green space.
Correct. So when we figure that out per the parcel, you have to allow, somebody might buy, let's say, 150 by 40 feet, let's say, okay? Or 100 by 40, 4,000 square foot property. They think they're going to build 3,500 square foot home. They can't. Just like what you said. There is a percentage, there is a certain way we do calculations where you have to allow certain percentage for grass and greenery area. And also you have to calculate where's your garage, your porches, all that is calculated. So there's a lot to it. That's why you really have to make sure you talk to somebody that is experienced. And it doesn't hurt to hire an engineer, pay a couple $100 for consultation, just to get that, make sure that, just like when you get an appraisal, you pay a couple $100 to find out the value of the home.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I would pay the same thing. I'll pay somebody that's an expert to be able to go and do the homework if you're not capable of doing it. A lot of times the clients, they just go to the city. They don't understand that most city employees are not engineers. They're not plan reviewers. You just have a staffing person or a clerk sitting at the front desk and just giving you information, or an inspector giving you information. Again, they're not engineers, they're not plan reviewers. So they're not going to be able to give you 100% accurate results from what you really need to know.
So switching from your engineering hat to your realtor hat, the old saying goes, location, 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 right?
Correct.
So with location comes what? Market value.
Correct.
How are those two items work together? Location and market value. In your perspective as somebody that's a licensed realtor, when you're looking at where the commercial property is located and what the value of the market, how do you see those two components coming together?
So we get a lot of clients and they ask me, I want to do an addition or I want to build a house, and here's what I have. A lot of times we just tell them, you can't do it. I don't think you should do it. And the guy's like looking at me, are you serious? You're trying to put jobs away? I mean, we're trying to give you a job. I said, no, because for instance, you want to build a house, a brand new home in let's say an area somewhere in Detroit, let's say, east or whatever, and you want to build a $200,000 or $250,000 home, even if it's a ranch, small home, and the values around that property, the blocks or the roads or the streets, are only 100, 150. Or less. Why would you want to go build a home for 250? If you're seeking loans, you're not going to be able to get the appraisal because all the properties there are appraised at 120, right? If you pay from your pocket and then later on you want to sell, you're never going to be able to sell.
Never
recover your value because you already spend way more with the values of the properties around that area.
Are there any legal restrictions zoning laws and land use regulations? I know that comes up a lot in engineering where you might go for a SLU, a special land use request.
Correct. We face a lot of problems similar to the situation you asked me about. For instance, we have commercial properties that clients come and they say, we want to develop this, we want to make this a truck stop. So they're thinking, well, I got 5 acres, I'm 100% good, I can get a fleet there, no problem, I can build a truck stop, I can do this and that. But then coming to find out after you start doing your homework, there's wetlands, or maybe there's an easement, or utilities, or maybe you're supposed to do an underground management system, because that's a new thing that mitigates water, and that is became after Corona. It's more enforceable by the counties. Right. We don't want the water to be dumped on the streets, on our manholes. We want it to go somewhere underground. So that's really costly. There's a lot of things that goes into it. Also, a lot of people don't know that they need to do a soil test. How do you know environmentals? How do you know you can build on that property? If it's wetland, it could be most of your property is wetland and you can't utilize that. You can only maybe build on 1 acre, not 5. Or contaminations. Sometimes they buy properties and they have not checked that there's an environmental issue. It used to be a gas station that got demoed and backfilled. Now there's a lot to it. That would
be considered a brownfield, right?
Correct. Okay. And then you're involved with the EPAs and there's a lot to it. So yes, all these are really factors, and they could be very hefty and costly factors that could hurt somebody's project.
Excellent information. Things you need to know before you buy. So another thing you'll be looking at, what's the availability of utilities, right?
Correct.
You would look at that. And something that you would really gauge is the price, right? You would look at the market value as far as the price. Is the price right for the investment, for the amount of investment? And that's what you've been telling us all this time. Does the market value and the investment really meet at an equilibrium where they satisfy the owner's needs, right?
That is correct.
They can recoup their costs.
That is correct. So they have to do a little math. Mm-hmm. Talk to contractors, talk to architects, engineers, try to just get a feel. Okay, how much would it cost me to build this? How much would it cost me to do design? Add up all these numbers, add up the cost of your land, add up surveying. A lot of people purchase a land and they go to the designer or the engineer and they said, okay, could you do the design for me? He's going to say, first question we're going to ask him, do you have a survey? I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, you need a surveyor to give you a boundary survey along with topo. Some people might pull a page from their closing and say, hey, I have a survey, but it's only a mortgage survey. That doesn't work because the cities will not accept that. You need an actual boundary survey with pins around the property.
Red flags, from what you've been telling us, are price being too low. Okay, there's no match. Could indicate a big problem with vacant lots or neighborhoods. Impact the value of the house, of course, or the investment, and you would also look at some of the infrastructure and some of the as a realtor, if you have a couple that has children and they're looking for nearby schools or nearby shopping, all these different amenities that make that particular home a sound investment. Are they close to bus lines, schools, and shopping, right?
Yeah, so it goes both ways. It goes differently, actually, for residential and commercial. So for residential, yes, you have to make sure that you're close by schools. You got to check. Also, another important factor that affects the value of your property is the school district. Okay. An example would be, there's people that, let's say you want to purchase property in Canton. They look at it, are we in Canton School District or is it Plymouth School District? So that makes it different in your value. Just because you bought a property in Canton don't mean that the value is there what you're thinking. So you got to look at the districts. Now,
Because people buy houses based on school districts.
yes, that's a big factor.
Right.
Yeah, so that is very important. Now, in the commercial side, whether you're doing a restaurant, mechanic shop, whatever you're trying to do, what's really important is feasibility study. I totally recommend people don't want to spend the extra buck, but it is important to do a feasibility study because they're going to tell you have the market for your business. Do you or you do not?
Right.
I would rather spend $10,000 and not lose $1 million, right?
Correct.
To go move forward with the projects and spend all that money at the end. You don't have no clients because where you at, the location doesn't support your business.
And the big companies, that's the way they do it before they place their businesses. They do a feasibility study on a particular lot.
Correct.
Right.
So
they look at they do a traffic evaluation. They look at bus lines. They look at different factors that make a particular corner more visible and more viable than others.
that is correct. So what most people do, especially if they're experienced, they will, when they sign the contracts to purchase the properties, they always put a 60 to 90 days due diligence. And if what that gives them, and I advise everybody to do so, what that gives them that period of time to go forward and do some investigation. I know it costs a little bit money, but it's better to do it now. So first thing, you would contact everybody that I talked about, engineers, surveyors, get prices, get opinion, talk to the city, talk to some planning guys in the planning departments, not inspectors. They need to talk to planners, talk to the zoning, talk to assessors. They're going to give them all this information they're looking for. Now, they might have in big commercial properties, bigger projects, they need soil testing to determine whether they're going to do all that. So they can do all these activities during the 90 days. If any of these things are negative impact on the project, they're able to pull out of the contract, so they're not obligated under that contract, and they can get a full refund of their deposit.
Okay. So, and that could be saved by if you hire the right consultant and do all that legwork for you. Right?
Correct. There are certain consultants that are experienced that could do the whole thing for you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, getting to the nuts and bolts before you're closing a deal. Okay. Now you're wearing your realtor hat and your engineering hat. What structural inspection should be looking for? Give me three or four of them.
If we're talking about commercial,
commercial,
you got to make sure that the foundation, you look at inspect as far as structure, you always inspect the foundation. You take a look at the walls, they need to get inspected. You look at the beams, the main structure, the main shell, exterior, interior. Look for any evidence that maybe in commercial a roof been leaking for a long time. The roof needs to be replaced. So that leak, that water goes onto the foundation, causing cracks, could cause cracks on the blocks. It depends on the nature of the building. In residential, same thing. You look in the basement. You make sure that the foundation of the basement has no cracks and it's in good condition. You look at the trusses, beam, structure. So all that could be done by hiring a structural engineer.
So we've talked about zone use, and another important thing is the title and legal verification. Staying in compliance. Let's go through the list. Compliance is critical for avoiding legal issues, right?
Correct.
Penalties and costly repairs. There's a lot of building codes and permit requirements, zoning laws and land use restrictions, like you've mentioned, and the environmental regulations. So, is there any common mistakes that you would say are most common amongst buyers, in your opinion?
Yes, I'm going to give 2 tips. First tip is always look if there is any previous violations or blight violations, tickets, anything been issued for that property that you're trying to buy, because that gets transferred to the new owner,
And so does water.
and so does water. Second tip is make sure that that building is not in the demolition list.
Okay.
A lot of these buildings are on the demolition list. Neither the realtor or anybody else would know without further investigation. The second thing is your building is on the demolition list. Now you have another matter, a legal matter that you have to take with the city to be able to pull it out of the demolition list if you can.
Thank you, Dr. Najib, for this wonderful tips and information that is so valuable to buyers, whether they're looking for their first home or an investment property, or they're trying to go open up their first business. Thank you so much for your time, and you are our matter expert. Things before you know, things before you buy. Buy smart. Thank you for joining us on this episode.
Thank you.